Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us this evening. So it's a new year, and with a new year comes new goals, objectives, and an opportunity to grow your freelance business. There are many changes happening in the editing and publishing industry. However, our guest speaker today doesn't think change is all that bad. It can open the door for new opportunities. Where are these opportunities? She'll tell you about where to find them. Nina Munteanu is an ecologist and an internationally published author of award-nominated speculative novels, short stories, and nonfiction. She is co-editor of Europa, SF, and currently teaches writing courses at George Brown College and University of Toronto. Nina has been coaching writers to successful publication for over a decade and gives workshops to writers on editing, marketing, and promotion. Ladies and gentlemen, Nina. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome here. I'm happy to be here. This is really cool. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. I want you to participate. This is not a lecture. This is a sharing. So if anyone wants to add something or inquire about something that I'm talking about, let's just do it right then and there. Does that sound okay with everybody? Makes me feel better too. Thank you, Andrea, for that lovely introduction. I also have some information and books down on that table over there. Books that I wrote, so speculative fiction, if anyone's into that. Also have some writing books on how to write, how to journal, that sort of thing. So just feel free to take a look. And I'm going to be giving a blowout sale for people in this room. So please let me know if you're interested. Anything else? I have business cards there as well, so help yourselves to go. Okay. Let's start off. So a little bit about me, just a little bit. I got into writing. I was this big when I wanted to write. I wanted to be a paperback writer, like the Beatles song. But later on in life, I got involved in ecology and science and got very, very fervent about that and went into science. So I got a degree in that and I became a scientist. By the way, am I speaking loud enough? Do I need the mic? Yes.
Do I need the mic?
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
It's better.
Yeah, much better. Actually, we're going to have to move this over here then, because I want to stand here. Yeah. So, I did a lot of writing in science, but I always had my goal was to write fiction, and so I eventually did write fiction, as you can see down there at the back. So I also really, I got into teaching as well. So I did a lot of teaching in biology and sciences, and then what I did was I amalgamated those loves. The love for teaching, the passion for writing, and right now what I do a lot of, which helps pay the bills, is I coach writers. So doing that, basically I use my editing skills and my writing skills together and my science skills in organizing and those kind of things. So it's a very fulfilling career, and it's opened a lot of doors into perceptions of things, which I want to share with you right now. And that's to do with the whole writing arena that is changing right now. Publishing primarily is going through huge changes right now. I'm sure you remember how the music industry went. I mean, it didn't go. Obviously, it's flourishing like crazy, but the paradigm has changed. That very same paradigm is changing now for publishing. And for the fine arts, too. It's interesting. All the arts are starting to blend into this one amorphous thing of expression, which is so, so very exciting, but also challenging. This still isn't quite right for me. Is there any way to get the mic right here? Sorry, folks. Just a little bit of stuff like this. We can have it behind me.
Going on that side there.
Okay, as you can see, I have my main tool right here, my pens. You guys all have pens. When you're thinking, when you're talking, you have a pen in your hand? Has everybody got a pen in their hand? Not just for taking notes? Okay. Okay, keeping up with the changing face of publishing. That's us. That's us. Let's see if this works. Ooh. Okay, what I'm going to talk about, I'm just going to reiterate, is I'm going to overview the writing and publishing industry, how writers write and publish today, statistics and some projections, myths about the publishing industry. Are they really myths? We'll see. You determine that. Opportunities, this is a big one, for freelance editors particularly, editors of all kinds, but freelance editors particularly. And lastly, marketing and promoting to writers who need you. I'm a writer. I need you. Okay. So, milestones in publishing. I'm going to start with medieval time. We could start with the cave paintings in terms of communication, in terms of writing of some kind. But in the Middle Ages, medieval illuminated manuscripts were the big thing. They were the books of their day. And who's seen some? You've all seen them, right? They're gorgeous. They're a work of art. They were also part of an elite, right? They're delicate, large, beautiful, created in the language of the church, Latin, not of the people, so the people couldn't read these things. And they were copied entirely by hand by the monks, the clergy. So it was a real elite. Dimensions were the current size of a newspaper, itself going out of, do we still read the newspaper? Anyway, so that's how big it was, right? Normally they're quite large, written on parchment, much thicker, and they sometimes weighed, actually most of the times they weighed over 50 pounds. 50 pounds, you know, these big things with gorgeous, gorgeous covers made out of solid material. Here's some examples. Oh, yes, they were done by experts, right? Expert illuminators. Took months to years to finish. Years to finish a book. And that's just one book, housed in one place. They were cherished works of art. They did a lot of work in there. They're working with gilded material, with special ink, special parchments. It took ages to create, not ages, but a lot of skill to create the paper, the so-called paper, to create these works of art. Obviously, the readership was limited in terms of language and in terms of position. Who was reading it? Where were these books housed? So the common folk, what did they do? How did they share stories? Oral storytelling was the big thing then. They didn't read, most of them couldn't read. Whether they could read Latin or not, they just couldn't read. So they told their stories orally. Just some examples. Magna Carta. A lot of these were religious works. Of course, they were written by the monks. Book of Hours, prayer books. And they were sponsored by rich lords and ladies. One of the, I think it's this one here. I think it's this one, yeah. This one here is the Book of Hours, commissioned by the Duc de Berry. It's Très riche de Duc de Berry, and considered the most important illuminated manuscript of the 15th century. We have the Book of Kells, which is the 4 Gospels of the New Testament. And then we get into some fun stuff. Courtly love, Arthurian romances, Lovesick Knight for his patron, troubadour poetry. And this is Le Roman de la Rose. Okay, now we're into agents of change. Great change happened with the printing press. It was invented in 1452, and funnily enough, at the time, it was ignored pretty much by the monks. And Mr. Joe Peasant, well, he didn't even know about it anyway, and he couldn't read books. Why was it ignored by the monks? Because they figured, what were they doing? They were doing these awesome works of art in a language, the proper language, whereas the printing press was printing this almost vulgar, only print.
So, like,
Never mind that it was the Gutenberg Bible.
So pretty much how theater people looked at the early motion picture industry.
Very much so. Very much so. Okay, so what did the printing press do? So storytelling, it's all about storytelling. It was no longer confined to the elite clergy. This is big. Books could be created by anyone. Prior to that, right? Not everybody was doing it. And shared in the spoken languages of the people. German, English, French, Spanish. Nick Bilton wrote a really cool book about, I think the future is now, something like that. He's with the New York Times, and he stated this. This quote is wonderful. This allowed the spread of information that couldn't be controlled by the clergy, kings, politicians, or religious elite. It opened it totally up to the world. It shifted an entire zeitgeist. Sound familiar? Okay, a couple of things, just to reiterate. So Gutenberg's printing press and the mass printed book was in 1452, but in actual fact, those books were still those same huge books like the illuminated books. It was 50 years later when Aldous how do you pronounce his name? Manutius invented the portable pocket book. The book that, you could put in a pocket, literally. So basically, he invented the mobile phone of his day. Think about it, right? So those two together created something new. Political and religious leaders were concerned over the uncensored sharing. I can't even read that. Where's my glasses? Doesn't help. Of new and varied ideas among the lay public. That's what happens when you get older. Okay, so this was, you can see where things are shifting, right? The power was being shifted to the masses. Very scary for the elite, particularly. Right? Those who know how to write have the power. Those who have the information have the power. Okay, let's move 600 years into the future, speaking of the iPhone, to today's traditional print publishing industry. Okay, currently, it's changing quite a bit, but we're walking into this current scenario. So currently it's done by pro writers, professional writers, screened by in-house editors, right? Of a publishing house, of an established publishing house with a reputation. And that's where all the writers want to be published. Is it working? Good stuff. Takes about a year. Remember that 1 year it took to create that one book? Oddly enough, it still takes a year. From the point that the author submits, gets accepted, goes through the whole stuff with the publisher, getting the cover, doing the layout, doing the editing, doing the marketing. It's a year after is when the book comes out. A little bit of a difference, mass market. However, it's still determined by price and availability and which bookstore picks up that book. And the reader's ability to buy it. So the readership is very limited to the circulation of the book, where it sits, whether the bookstores, major bookstores have picked up the book, that sort of thing. So there is a kind of a gateway each throughout this whole process. So what do the common folk do?
Libraries, free ebooks.
Okay, but a lot of people also go to TV, videos. They have other venues, right? Or did, or still do. Okay, just some examples. Classical work there by Thomas Hardy, one of my favorites. Bestseller book, mystery. Other eclectic books. Just some examples of the different genres that are represented in the different kinds of publishing companies that publish their books based on readership, their awareness of leadership, of the readership and the marketability of the book. And last but not least, I just wanted to throw in our friend. We like her. I do have stories to tell about Margaret Atwood as a science fiction writer, someone who belongs to the science fiction world, but that's for drinks later. Okay. Just as the Gutenberg printing press was an agent of change, the internet is our agent of change. Huge. And funnily enough, not unlike the Gutenberg printing press, a lot of people just didn't hold much store on the internet. It just kind of snuck in, didn't it? Who has an iPhone in this room? Who has a smartphone, I should say, smartphone, because it's not just iPhones anymore. Who does not have a smartphone?
Have an e-reader.
Okay. Who has an e-reader or e-device? Who has a computer?
Well, not a three.
Who goes on the internet? Who's not putting up their hand? I find that interesting. Editors without the internet. Okay, so back in 1970s, the first email was delivered. Isn't that cool? Not long ago. 1985, 89, the World Wide Web, right? The global information medium was used on the internet, was created by CERN scientists and donated to the world in 1993. Later on, it was commercialized, the internet was commercialized, because remember, it wasn't used commercially before, with near instant communication. So, right? Instant messages, email, voice image, blogs. Blogs started showing up long ago, before people even knew what they were. Forums, social networking was a little baby. Online shopping was doing really good. So it was available to anyone with a PC. It was back in the 80s, 90s, a few people had PCs. So potential for the individual in autonomous global publishing of anything without censure. Think of it. Anybody could put anything on the internet if they knew how to get their stuff on there. Again, zeitgeist shifted. through the entire world. Let's just quickly look over some things. So, first weblog, which is, blog is short for that, was published, what's that date? 1990s. MABs then came about. Those are multiple author blogs. First of all, they were just single author blogs, and now we have all these major companies, news companies, all kinds of publishers who kind of jumped in on the bandwagon of creating blogs that are multi-authored, which is a really cool thing. And that's something to consider as a group. So 2004, Facebook was launched. Can you imagine that long ago? Or not so long ago? MySpace, YouTube had already been out for a while. Twitter came about, LinkedIn, Second Life. Anyone on Second Life? Who's on LinkedIn? Very good. Who's on Facebook? About the same. Good. Does anyone use Twitter?
A bit.
Okay. MySpace? Pinterest? Tumblr? Wow, got no one on that one. Cool.
I follow some people, but I don't actually put anything of my own.
Okay. Okay. 2007, smart communication devices were created, like the iPhone. What's that? Yeah, they were mass marketed, right? With this cool touch interface. Very cool thing, isn't it? I love my iPhone. That's why it's not in my hands, otherwise I'd be using it. 2009, the word unfriend appeared in the dictionary. Unfriend. Sorry, I think that's really fun. 2012, over 1 billion people use the internet and social media via the computer, smartphones, whatever, right? Tablets, game consoles, all kinds of stuff. 2013, over, what is that? 156 million. Blogs, over 1 billion files uploaded daily to Dropbox. Does anyone use Dropbox? Most of you do, I don't think. Who's got a blog?
On LiveJournal.
Not too many have a blog. Who has a website? Okay. Who has a website? Wow, who has a website? You guys have separated into two groups here. That's very weird. Same concerns, right? Politicians and religious leaders concerned over the uncensored sharing of new and varied ideas among the lay public. 600 years later, something like that comes about. So what does that mean for storytelling today? How are we sharing our stories? I took that picture at a restaurant. They're probably talking to each other. I know they're talking to each other. My friends do that all the time. My son does that all the time. Anyway. Yeah, interesting. So, we are in a renaissance, literally, a renaissance of self-expression. Who has kids here? Who know or knows youth? Some youth. Okay. Or our youth. Everybody put up your hands. Everybody put up your hands. It's amazing. It's amazing what they are sharing. Okay. Before I get into the stats, how are we doing for timing? Okay. We'll get into some meat in a minute. I work at a cafe in the Beaches, and the owner there has 4 kids, all different ages, in their late teens. And one of them, she's an artist, an incredible artist, and she sits there on the couch. The cafe has a couch, it's really nice. She sits there and shares on her iPhone and or her computer, back and forth, via Facebook, videos, chat, all kinds of stuff is going on there. She's sending things, she's getting stuff. There's a huge explosion of expression from such a variety of people, individuals. And, the youth are really into that. It's looking at all kinds of stuff that people are able to put up on the internet and others are finding. And she'll share it with anybody. And they'll share it with anybody. It's anything from something highly personal to quite a professional piece of work. We have everything out there and people are acquiring it. How are they acquiring it? That's another thing. And how you guys get involved, maybe in that or maybe not in that, is another. Okay. I'm not going to be able to read all this stuff. I'm going to move this over. Can you folks read that stuff on the screen?
Yeah.
That's a lot better. Much better for me. Okay. Publishers Weekly is a professional magazine that talks about the publishing world. So they're very reputable. And they reported that, what is that, close to,
More than 750,000.
yeah, more than 750,000 self-published micro-publishers, or publisher titles, this was in 2009, came out, were released. That's twice the number of traditionally published titles. That's a lot. 8,000 to 11,000 new publishers currently enter the field every year, and most of them are indie or self-published. Does anyone know what indie is? Independent? 78%, close to 80% of titles brought out come from small press or self-publishers. That's huge. 52% of books sold are not sold in the bookstores. They're merchandised through mail order, online, discount warehouse stores, although those are disappearing on us, book clubs, mostly online. And Amazon Kindle tells us that a quarter of the top 100 sales are from indie publishers. Okay, these are their top sellers from independents. So people are reading them, people are creating them, and people are reading them. And that's a trend. That is more than a trend. More stats, because we like stats. Readers buy their stories in multiple formats, including paperbacks, audiobooks, ebooks, video format. Any others? That's enough for now. Readers rely more on fellow reader reviews. This is important to us authors. E.g., Amazon, the reviews that appear on the Amazon bookstore by readers. Goodreads. They rely on these over author endorsements and professional reviewers. Think of that. So they're looking to their fellow readers for advice. We see that already in the film industry, right? Rotten Tomatoes, looking at people's reviews of movies. Those aren't professional reviewers in many cases. A lot of them are just people who've watched it. Having said that, readers are more likely to buy a self-published book by an author they know. The thing is, how do they get to know that author? through their friends. The most popular genre is romance. Just thought I'd throw that in. It's no surprise. Most popular social media to follow anyone, as in a writer or a reader, is Facebook, and Goodreads was very popular as well. Does anyone, you all pretty much on Facebook, right? How about Goodreads? People know about Goodreads? It's a great, it's like a big giant book club, right? It's a very good one. Okay, just quickly again, indie can include from self-published authors to publishing houses that fall outside the big six. The big six being those big giant guys, you know, like Ace Books and... Sorry? Exactly. So that's a lot of publishing companies. Indle on Kindle is simply self-published though, via the Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP. I'll use that too, actually. Okay, so the new publishing model, and what does it mean for freelance editors? Want to work? Yay! It is really. Oh, I put a butt in there. A big butt. Okay, here's the bottom line, guys. Authors have a misconception of editing needs and costs. And I heard a couple of discussions in the hallway already about this. It's unfortunate. They just don't get it. Because in fact, they themselves are maligned in the same way authors are. So you're dealing with that. Authors are cheap.
Oh, they're poor.
Oh, they're poor. Well, we're cheap. No, I actually mean cheap. And I'll describe that in a minute. We're all poor. Editors, writers, we're all in the same boat. We don't make that much money. What I mean by cheap is that they have many authors, particularly because there's so many coming into self-publishing. They've not gone through the steps to become a published author like through a traditional route. They do not, what I'm getting at with cheapness here is they do not understand the value of certain things. And unfortunately, one of them is editing, which the other one is promotion, the things related to promotion, such as a really good book cover and or a really good back jacket blurb and or a really good synopsis and summary and or press release. All those things are extremely valuable. But back to the product itself. That's what I was getting at. Authors may lack a vision and are often impatient. Right? I want it in 2 days. You can do that, can't you? At the price you said. Oh, no one's laughing except we're all stubborn introverts, we are. So there is some convincing. There is, just as there is for me as a writer in the publishing area. Okay. Some of the arguments that are important for you to know, and for them to know, and for you to give, is that poor editing is in fact the #1 complaint heard from critics of the independent publishing industry. And I'm saying those that are published through an indie publisher or self-published. People are finding a lot of mistakes. And there's a huge sort of still feeling out there that a lot of it's crap because it hasn't gone through the proper screening process in terms of editing. The reason for that is because a lot of it hasn't gone through it. So it's a not a great scenario. Okay, the examples are spotty spelling and numerous typos. And believe me, readers out there are saying that. The regular readers, never mind the professional reviewers. So spotty spelling and numerous typos, lackluster prose, poor grammar. These are all things you all know and you're dealing with. And lastly, but not least, this is just an add-on, authors have a misconception of the cost of their unedited works. In other words, they think, I'm an author, I'm a writer, I know what I'm writing. I don't need an editor. I can't afford an editor. It's going to get out there, and there it is. Maybe let the readers tell me what's wrong with my book. That's so sad. The reason they shouldn't be doing this is because, well, sorry, I'll get to that in a minute. Along the same lines, most indie publishers do not offer editing services. They expect the writer to do that. They expect, they don't have the money or the resources to do the editing. Even the traditional publishers are now expecting submitted works to be already edited. That's the truth. So they're cutting back on their in-house editors, and they want you to find an independent freelance editor to do the first pass at least. This is the misconception. Once e-published, a work is permanently on the internet, and writers expect the internet or the audience to tell them things. It's too late. It's out there already. It's already published. That is not the time to get your feedback. Because as you and I well know, once you have a reputation, there it is. So self-published and indie-published stories must prove excellent to rise above the sea of works and be recognized and read and remembered. Those are my 3 R's. Remember those 3 R's you had in, maybe you didn't. Were they doing that when you guys were little? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. This is critical because when a self-published work goes out, unless it has the word gray in it, it's not going to really necessarily rise up on its own, unless it is somehow cream over the milk. There are billions, well, millions of stories going out all the time. I just quoted you those stats. And Amazon currently has, what, 7 to 12 million titles in its bookstore, in its virtual bookstore right now. That's a lot of books for you to rise up and get even noticed, never mind get bought. So how are they going to do that? Unless their book cover is stellar, unless their book is stellar. So it is up to the author to ensure the worthiness. See, it's shifted now, right? It's shifted from the publishing house to the author, the source. So what this translates to you, translates to a great opportunity. You have a diversity ahead of you in terms of where and when and what you can do. I'm just going to start talking about some of the things now. Whether they suit you or not, it's all part of this huge arena that is opening up for editors right now. It's like you were inside a little glass house. Maybe it wasn't even glass, but yes it was. And suddenly all the doors have opened and we don't have the walls anymore. I'm just going to go over a few things that may not make total sense, but they're all about opportunity. One of the ways is to diversify the things that you do. And this, I'm going to talk about this continuously until I finish. So diversify. Some of the things that editors can definitely help writers with. Remember, a lot of these are writers who are starting off. They're not with a publishing company who is telling them what they need to do. They're not with a publishing company who has its own marketing department that is doing things for them. They are on their own. They're their own publisher, right? They're their own entity. So, if you're an editor that also writes, what editor doesn't write? Correct? You're writing, when you're fixing things, you have that discerning ability to summarize, to criticize. Who better than an editor to come up with taglines and tweet lines for a book? An author biography, a book jacket blurb, and summaries. Believe me, writers themselves can't write these. I'd say 90% of the authors that are out there who've written a book cannot write these. They cannot summarize their own work. There's a whole media kit, brochure design and content. You can get involved in all of these things as part of your ancillary services as an editor. Short press releases. Those of you who have other areas like technical writing or other kinds of writing, apply these things in a new model for yourselves. Interior layout, design, and format if you have extra talents. The point is, because the publishing model has broken out into an a la carte menu, the editor can pick up anything else that they want to put in their toolkit of what they offer to an author. I'll give you an example. You're not necessarily missing out. I just kind of said that to be, I don't know, not to be mean. Okay, just to give you an example. Pro writers. There are lots of pro writers out there that are putting up editor shingles because they are recognizing what I just told you. And they're coming off as authors who know how to edit. We all know that's not true. Editors know how to edit. Okay, here's an example. It might be too small for you to read, but the service is offered by this particular gentleman, James Hutchings. He's a professional writer of fantasy and science fiction, and he is calling himself a professional editor of fantasy and science fiction. He offers proofreading, copy editing, structural editing, and his qualifications include a graduate degree in creative writing, a Bachelor of Arts. And then he goes on to say that he's written a bunch of stuff. Those are his credentials. And he charges. His prices are actually close to, you guys charge mostly by the hour, correct? Yes. Most people here in this room. So he charges, what is that?
4 cents a word. Those numbers.
Yeah, 4 cents a word. It actually comes close to what you folks charge. I think he gets more, a little bit more. Now, whether he's getting it is something else, though. You know, you could charge $1 million for an apple, but if you don't sell it, it doesn't matter what you charge. The point is, this came out, I'll just continue with the story behind this, he was really smart in marketing. He went to SF Canada, which is an organization of professional SF writers, such as myself, and he marketed his services to them. And I belonged to a listserv with that group, and I heard all the gossip that came after this. And the gossip was, the guy can't spell right. I don't think I want him as an editor. He's charging far too much. Blah, 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 blah. He's just an author. Who the hell is he? But the point is, he knew where to go, didn't he? And maybe he did pick up 1 or 2 authors, I don't know.
Ask me a question.
The point is, he's a writer, not an editor. What he has, perhaps on most of us in this room, is that he knows where those authors are. That's pretty much all you need to do, is find out where they are. So we're going to go over some resources to help you find out where they are. Okay, get connected with authors and publishers and book designers and marketers and. What I'm suggesting that you do is go outside your area and look elsewhere. Okay, I'm going to focus on two areas. One is online, and one is right here in your community, your physical community. So community, organizations, and professionals. In Toronto, online, it includes your sites, visiting others, and participating. So, getting connected in Toronto, I've included a whole bunch of these, but I think you don't have to write them all down. Am I correct? We have this as a handout? Okay, so you can relax. And the second one too that's coming up. Just kind of, you can just look with me and I'll just go over them with you a little bit. What I'm pointing you to are things that events, organizations that will help you connect with the right people, other authors and or other individuals to do with writing and publishing, such as small indie publishers. Wouldn't it be nice to get to know some of them? Some of those, 88,000 of them that are coming out every whatever. So we have writers' conferences and pro-writing organizations. The Ontario Writers' Conference coming up, Can Write Conference, Toronto Writers' Union of Canada, I mentioned SF Canada, Professional Writers of Canada, right? Those are all organizations, and you are there helping these people, potentially helping them. Genre and fan conventions, there's a number of them that happen out here. Ad Astra is one that I go to. SF Ontario, these are sci-fi ones. Just as an example. Book clubs too, those are excellent. Remember Goodreads? Get a table, meet writers. I've seen that. Get a table. You will get a lot of attention. Okay, you're putting out a little bit of money. Doesn't cost that much. At Astra, for instance, to buy a table in a trade show, you could even share is maybe, I don't know, $50 or something like that. You set up there, you have a brochure, all those kind of things. These are fan conventions. These are writer conventions. So who's there? Pro writers, would-be writers, not so pro writers. All of them needing some editorial help. And where they go depends on who they meet. Trade shows and writing festivals. There's a small press literary festival. There you go, small press. You get to meet the small presses. Word on the street. IFOA. What's IFOA? International Festival of Authors. Thank you. That's a cool one, actually. That's coming up in May. There's the Totally Unknown Writers Festival. I like that one. You could be the totally unknown editor, helping the totally unknown writer. That would be really cool. I'd do that. Indie Literary Fairs, TIAM. That's also coming up. Set up a booth. They have booths. They do it in the Gladstone Hotel. It's a really nice venue. Set up a booth. You will also meet, definitely you will meet indie publishers. Connect with them. Because they will, at the very least, if they don't use you, they will connect you with their authors. So this is what this whole arena, this whole growing thing is turning into. Everybody saying hi to everybody as individuals now. It's almost like a guild, where each individual has a trade that they barter back and forth, as opposed to this big company versus this big company and who belongs to what. You yourself can deal personally with these small publishers. and have that kind of thing going. So local writing events, workshops and lectures. I'm moving down as it goes down into the micro area. Things happening in libraries or community centers. Get in on them, go to some of them, introduce yourself to writers and or publishers. Attend free writing seminars, the same thing. It's a way of connecting, right? Connecting outside into that area that huge area where individuals are. Individuals that need you. Any questions before I go online? I mean, I won't go online. You'll go online. Any questions?
No, but I have just a suggestion. There are a lot of writers groups, people that just get together and
Oh,
once a
definitely.
week.
I left out writers groups.
And I've worked with 3 writers with one group where I live, and I almost jokingly said I should come and talk to you guys about grammar and they basically invited me. I mean,
There you
they didn't
go.
pay me quite what I was worth, but
No.
you know, I mean, I had.
The
you
thing
know,
is-
it was okay. I mean, it was
Yeah.
$160 for
There you go. $160 for
3 hours, but
That's
I
for 3 hours.
scrap work. But now I've got the thing prepped.
You have it.
Yeah.
So next time you do it, you're doing it almost for,
Yeah.
the prep work's down. The other thing about that is it's your entry level. And you may
Well, more than they
have
come
got,
to me for.
exactly. And this is what's happened in my case too, which is why I like speaking engagements, which is why I'm hoping to buy some of my books. Anyway, but that opens the door, and that was very smart of you. Writers groups, literary groups, and you can sometimes find them through the library. You can find out who's meeting who, what groups are forming. In fact, some of them are in the libraries. And then get to know those people, because those are the people that need editors, they are.
And often they already have jobs and they're writing more for pleasure, so they actually have money. Because they
Precisely.
have an income.
Yes, this whole group of people that are published, that are self-expressing now through their own companies or small indie companies, a lot of them do have money. That's the whole point. They can publish because they have money. And it doesn't take that much, but the point is they're willing to. And because it doesn't cost that much to publish, believe me, it doesn't actually anymore, they are able to spend money on some of the important things, like the book cover and the editing part to get their story right. And they will do that. Okay.
Nina, the other kind of conference you can go to is just some other kind of professional conference. Has nothing to do with writing or editing, or, it could be in your particular specialty.
Excellent point.
Whether it's science.
What
or
Meredith said
medical
is-
or arts or,
Right. You can go to another conference that has to do with something totally different, but they involve writing. So let's say in the medical field, or something to do with dogs. There you go. And it's something that you're interested in as well. And then there you are. There are bound to be people who are writing. Because writing is what we all do. That's the whole point of this talk too, is that everybody is writing, everybody is expressing. Just about everybody has a book out there. And it's just linking up with them. And so that's a very imaginative way, and it's a really good way, because it's coming in literally through the side door, and it's linking your interest with their interest. And then the writing part is simply the communication part. And it just so happens you're an editor, so you can help them. So there you are. Facebook is a good place for something like that. All the social media, since we're on this slide, are very, very good for linking you to people of similar interest where you can help out. So you go in, that's rule number 1 that we've been learning, us bloggers, for many years, is how to get people, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, how to get people to your blog. Let's say you set up a blog and it's just the coolest blog, but no one's going on there, you got no comments or anything. Oh my goodness, is anyone reading me? It's just like the poor radio announcer. Is there anybody out there? But the very best way to do it, of course, is to get off your, excuse my language, introverted ass and get out there and talk to people. And as a blog person, the very best way is to go to someone else's blog Like, go to Meridy's blog and comment on her wonderful book that she's creating. Next thing you know, there's a dialogue that happens. Next thing you know, someone else knows about you, etc., etc., in another way. So, when, I know I'm talking about promoting here, but the best way to promote yourself is actually not to promote yourself, but to just do things that you love, share on the internet. And that's why social media is just taking off like crazy. And that's why people like Neil Gaiman, what does he do? He just talks about himself on Twitter. And he has, what, a bazillion followers? Because they like him. They're interested in him as a person, what he likes, all the mundane things that go on in his life. He doesn't talk about his books. He doesn't talk about his publishers. Or maybe he does sometimes when he's complaining. But the point is, what's happening is you're sharing. So LinkedIn, blogging, Twitter, Facebook, those are all about sharing. Online writing forums, great places. Writing and editing groups, and other book specialists. That's not so much to do with sharing. But a lot of these things are about sharing life, sharing yourself, becoming interesting. Next thing you know, those magical links will happen like Meredy was mentioning. So who, again, I asked who had all these things, and people do. That's a whole other talk. If anyone wants to talk about that later. I am actually giving workshops on this. If I may do a plug. At the end of February at Wonderland Cafe, part of a Writers in Wonderland workshop series. The next one coming up is all about social media. How to use it, why to use it, where to use it, who to use it with. So this one slide speaks a million things, but I'm kind of suggesting that you get into that in terms of just to share. Don't stress over it in terms of trying to push your services. The internet is a very interesting place. Social media, which is what most of these are, is an arena in the internet for sharing, and that is what you want to be doing there. Some don't want to share as much, but there are ways of getting to that place. Do I have anything else? How are we for time? How much do we have? We have a bit of time for questions? Okay. Before we do that, I just have a couple of links. Now, I don't know if this was included. Was this slide included, so you don't have to write this down either? An online marketing place that connects authors to freelance editors, book designers, and marketers. Just what I was talking about. Get yourself out there and network among the whole entire groups of people that belong to the industry, right? Because this is what's happening. A lot of book publishers per se are not really book publishers, they're printers. They're an elaborate printer service that then offers the writer various services, anything from editing to making a book cover or whatever, but in most cases they outsource that. So if you know those kind of people that they outsource to, then you have a link to the whole industry. Another one is called Author Connections, online site connecting, again, authors to professional editors. And again, this is written out, so you can grab a copy of it. So that is the end of my talk. Although my little pixel wants to keep doing things. One last thing, you're invited to my launch. I'm celebrating the launch of my trilogy. 2 of the books are back there. It's The Splintered Universe, a speculative adventure novel. It's happening in May of this year. I'd love for you to come. There's lots of yummies there. And these are the 3 books. The first 2 are in the back. If you come to my launch, EAC members get one free book. So if you just identify yourselves, then you will get a book for free. Just adding some contact information on me. If you have any questions on the talk or want to discuss any other opportunities that I may have alluded to and didn't clarify, feel free to email me or anything else. Go to my, you're also invited to go to my websites, various places that I write. So that's my email. Author Coach website is where I do my coaching. I have a news website. If anyone has news they want to share, that I'd be very happy to put it on that site for you. If it has to do with Toronto and yourselves. I also do a travel site through a interesting personage. You may like to go see that one. Adventure all around the world, and then I have my own personal blog where I talk about all kinds of things. And of course, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, Amazon, and Chapters, Goodreads, SF Canada, Amazing Stories, and Europe SF.
I have a question. How do you find time to write if you do all this?
Well, a lot of what I do there, promotional stuff, is writing, and I have to include that as part of my writing. Otherwise, yeah, you have to creep. Having said that, I am writing, and I tend to put 2 books out a year.
Wow.
So where do I find that time? That's my little secret. So questions, please.
Hi, my question is kind of unrelated, to be honest. I'm a former physician -- medical writer journalist, and I would like to get into some medical editing, but I know very little about it, to be honest. And I just wondered if there's anybody who either is a medical editor or knows that.
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
She's doing what we all should be doing. She's networking right here with this group. Perfect. Any other comments or questions?
Sort of following up on the previous question about when you find time to write, can you just give a sense of how you structure, say, your day, like around like all the different things that you're doing, or a week or something? Just
Okay.
How many hours a day do you spend, say, on social media?
Ah.
You know,
I actually don't spend that much on social media. I don't like to because it's a big black hole that you can fall into. And part of what helps me is I do have a smartphone, but I don't use it for social media at all. I just use it as a phone. Funny enough, it's a smartphone. So who's the smart one? I do use it for other things that do require the internet, but I don't go to Facebook or anything like that. I don't check my Facebook every 2 hours, like our gentleman in past. Didn't he check every 2 hours? I could never do that. I have too many, as you sort of notice, I have too many other things. I do structure my day. I'm a night person. I don't think as clearly in the morning. And I'm not a coffee drinker, maybe that's why. But I do business things during the day. So I do the social media. I check my blogs. I dedicate each day to one particular thing. As you noticed, I had several sites that I attend to, and I need to, and the thing about a successful site is you have to post often. So I will do that for each one so that I have almost, not quite, weekly or every 2 week something on that particular site. And then I do my emails. I do a lot of business with online. So that's my business day. And then in the evening, I do my writing. Yeah. And sometimes I watch TV, but I don't have a TV, so that's kind of cool. So I partition my day according to my own rhythm. And that brings up another really good question or statement. Something I want to bring up is that it's important for you to, when you're living the kind of lifestyle I live, which is I'm an entrepreneur, I teach, I write, I market, and heaven knows what else I do. Well, I work at a cafe too. So when you do that sort of thing, it's important to understand yourself, how you operate, how your body operates, how your mind and brain operates. And you don't want to be doing things late at night if you're not a night person, for instance. unless it's something that doesn't require that aspect of your brain, like watching a nice movie or something. But if you're going to be doing business things, or if you're going to be doing creating things, then you want to choose a time when that works for you. And of course, everybody's different, and you will know that, obviously. When do you do your editing?
In the evening,
In the evening?
and my writing, and,
Okay.
yeah, I'm like you, I do
Yeah.
daytime because I'm on
Yeah.
the go.
When do you do your editing? Who's asking me that question?
Mornings.
In the morning?
Person.
You're a morning person?
Yeah, I think so.
See? So you're exacting work, depending on whether that's the kind of person you are, you need to choose those times, and it's you know those times the best. And of course, where you do it too, right? That can differ as well. It's important to know what your needs are. So it's an iterative process. I get it done. I get a bit of sleep. Any other questions? Yes.
I work in quality review and clinical research. And I've been working with the medical writing team, and as I look through their numbers and their tables and numbers and text, I kind of find other things, and then they say thank you. So I'm kind of finding that I'm ending up in the role without having, had it officially. I'm transitioning in that direction. And what I'm wondering is, if I'm taking copy editing workshops or courses through the Medical Writers Association,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling a little tentative about, putting myself forward for that, is there an option to approach writers to do a pro bono services they might have someone else that they're having, is that an option? What do you think of that initially?
Okay, the question is, in order to promote yourself, does it make sense to, in some cases, do a pro bono to let them know just what they'd be getting, correct?
Because I have light
even-
hours for work, and if I have a week
Yeah.
free, and
There's a risk in that, just like there is with anything. Often, writers, in fact, will ask for a sample, don't they? They ask for sample for editing. And sometimes I got one who wanted a big, giant sample. I said, no, I'm not doing that. If you want a sample, you get a tiny sample. And in some cases, I don't even give a sample. I've already got samples on my website. I'll tell them to go there. Do they like what they see? Then come back to me. So pro bono can,
if you need that first sample.
yeah. I think I would look at that on a per client basis. And in your case, it may make sense because you're introducing something,
It's also
an idea.
because the clients your information is proprietary. We're
Right.
looking at a regulatory document
Yeah.
that they're submitting to
I would.
the government body. It's not something you can recirculate after.
Exactly, exactly, right, so you can only use it for that scenario. I would be very clear in what I was offering, the fact that I am offering this as, these are the conditions, this is why I'm doing this for you, I want to show you what I can do, I want to show you where you folks can go with that, this is why I'm doing it, but this is what I charge, or that sort of thing, or I would, that kind of thing.
Okay, define the scope and
Define
see
this-
what it would be going.
Define the scope very clearly, very clearly. And this is a point I wanted to make with authors generally. These kind of authors, particularly the indie authors, the so-called new publication that's out, they may not totally understand the professionality behind the operation of editing and writing and all those kind of things. And I made mention of that in the interview. I don't know if everybody read that interview. Thank you, Laura. Is Laura here? For putting that up. But there was a question there that attended to that, how different it is editing for an author, an indie publisher, or indie author, versus a publishing house. And there's a big difference. So, in a nutshell, there's a lot more opportunity, but there's also a lot more challenge, a lot more risk, which is always the case, right? More opportunity, more risk. So you just have to be careful, very careful with your language and clear in your intent and your conditions. Question?
Do you have any experience in the capacity of writer or as editor on Wattpad? the social network meets online publishing platform environment? that
No, just-
Margaret Atwood likes so much.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I just heard of it recently, in fact.
I wondered if you had any positive or mixed experiences.
No, I don't know enough about it to say anything, but if Margaret Atwood likes it, no, honest, really, I like
Or
Margaret Atwood.
Has anyone
She's
in the
cool.
room had any experience?
Yeah, has anyone in the room had an experience with that platform? Wattpad?
It seems a lot of writers publish serially.
Yeah.
And so, and it's often used on mobile platforms, so it's not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
online, but it's definitely what
Used
some
on
of those
mobile
kids in that
platforms.
picture
Exactly.
might have been reading.
Exactly. It's probably a really cool place to go.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm barely keeping up with all that stuff. There's just so many new things coming out and offering themselves, and it's the youth. That's why I asked for show of hands. Look at what they're doing, because they're the future. That's where publishing is going. Definitely. Welcome. Yes.
Do you feel confident editing your own work, or do you hire
Actu-
sometimes outside editors?
Yeah, I do. I always hire outside. I am with publishers, so they get the editors. But actually,
Do you find that difficult to work with an outside editor?
no, never. Because they're always professional, and I'm professional. Having said that, I'm actually a very good self-editor, and that's probably because I edit other people's work, and I have a method where I go away from my work long enough so that when I come back as a fresh reader.
Mm-hmm.
So my work is pretty clean, actually. Thanks for asking. Any other questions? Are we running out of time? We're good?
This is gonna sound funny, but when it comes to social media and information and technology, I'm the type of person who gets, like, I just get overwhelmed. Like, I'm on certain social media and like you said, trying to keep up. Do you ever get that sense of like, oh my God, you know, because you can be in a million places at
Yeah.
once and spreading
Yeah.
yourself too thin.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Okay, the question is, when you're on social media, you can get really caught up in all the different things and just get overwhelmed by what you're doing. And I'm going to take it a step further, possibly wondering what you're doing there and what the effect is, because it's just so much and you're overwhelmed by it. And it'll take up a lot of your time. It can. It just keeps going and going. I actually turn it off. That's what I do. I went away. I got into that sort of place with Facebook. I was posting a lot. I was getting involved with all these things, and then I turned it off. I just didn't go on Facebook for a whole week. I was going to say a whole day. A whole week. That's a lot for Facebook users. And it was great, because when I came back, I had a different perspective, and I just wasn't worried about all the contacts. Everything was still there, all the people were still there, and everything was still happening, and I was still there, which is important. And it's okay. So it's like anything, I think. Most of us, I think, are introverts in here, and we do need to switch that part off and go away and it's like taking a retreat. So I would, you might be challenged with a computer though, right? You've got social media going on there. And it's so easy to go, ooh, click, like on my computer, I just click on that little window and pop, I'm right in Facebook, just so easy. It's hard not to go there because you're curious,
Well,
right?
even with email, it's like compulsively checking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a discipline thing. It's tough. What I have done, I'll be honest, I go in waves, and I will get immersed in it. And I know that I'm too immersed sometimes when things bother me, and then I just go away. And I actually have to physically go away and shut the computer. I have to just go like this. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, little Mac, my friend, and walk away. My best friend. Yeah. Is that sort of, yes, that's my tack. It is. It's like anything that you love. You have a passion and you get into it, you sink in, but you have to come out. You do have to come out. With me, it happens with writing too. I'll get into something and I'll forget to eat and drink and other necessary things. And really, I'm German, strong stock. But anyway, so I just have to force myself sometimes and literally walk away and go for a walk, and you come back with a totally different perspective. And that's important to do that. Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if a lot of writers would be more confident going with editors who have their own writing published, and whether, like what you think about
Actually,
editors.
no.
No?
No.
Okay.
This is the thing. This is why I brought up this example. He was suggesting that made him a good editor. It doesn't. It makes him a good writer. It doesn't make him a good editor. A good editor doesn't have to have written anything. I said that. We all write. But a good editor has to understand the language well enough and be a really good reader and a critiquer. They themselves, many of the best editors, as far as I know, are not writers. And I think that's for a reason. So, and judging from the response, that was the response. They kind of going, And then they all named editors they prefer to go to, and they were not writers. So, you guys have that niche. You do, really, you do. Any other questions? Before I start selling you my books. And I'm just going to finish off, I think. My books are for sale back there. My trilogy, 2 books, and I have writing guides, if anyone's interested in writing guides, and a couple other of my fiction books. I will sell them for the rock bottom price of $10 each, if anyone's interested. Thank you very much.